Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jeff Barker, and I'm the New York State President for Bank of America. My wife, Wendy, and I are so pleased to be part of the Roundabout family. And I'm also very proud to say that Bank of America has supported Roundabout for nearly 3 decades. As many know, Bank of America has been a steadfast supporter of the arts for many, many years. And we believe in the power of the arts to help economies thrive, educate, and enrich society and create greater cultural understanding. During these difficult times, and especially now that we're virtual, this connection is more important than ever. On behalf of my colleagues at Bank of America, we are honored to support the Refocus Project and join Roundabout and Black Theater United in making the American theater a more equitable and diverse industry. In fact, in June of last year, Bank of America announced a $1 billion 4-year commitment to help advance racial equality and economic opportunity, with a particular focus on helping create opportunity for people and communities of color. And just last week, we expanded this commitment to $1.25 billion. At Bank of America, we always believe in collaborative efforts, and we're always looking for new ways to expand our partnerships. And when we heard about the innovative work that Roundabout and Black Theater United were leading through the Refocus Project, bringing these lesser-known American classics to individuals around the world for free, we knew this was a perfect fit for Bank of America's Global Arts Program, as well as our Racial Equity Initiative. It's a win-win for everyone involved, especially for all of you who have the chance to experience the Refocus Project. So I want to thank you all for tuning in today into this important discussion, and especially I want to thank the generous donors who make all of Roundabout's work possible. A special note of thanks and appreciation to the Ford Foundation for their leadership support of the Refocus Project. Now, if you have any questions or technical issues, please feel free to comment in the live chat to the right of your screen. I'm excited now to welcome the moderator for this afternoon's conversation, Roundabout Associate Artist and Obie and Lily winning director and actor, Whitney White.
Hi, Jeff. Thank you. It's wonderful to be spending some time, if even virtual, with you and with everyone who's listening to us now. We're going to be talking about a really necessary and, more importantly, important initiative that the Roundabout is launching. And I just want to say thank you again to the Ford Foundation for their leadership support, as well as Bank of America for supporting this project, the Refocus Project. I'm very excited to be leading today's conversation with 3 people who are incredible humans and also have been very pivotal to this project, the Refocus Project, and the Roundabout at large, and the American theater on a whole. First, we have the Roundabout Artistic Director and CEO, Todd Hames. Hi, Todd. We have Tony-winning director and Roundabout Senior Resident Director, Kenny Leon.
Hey.
Hi, Kenny.
How are you?
Good, nice to see you. And we have multi-hyphenate star and Roundabout board member, Vanessa Williams.
Hey, everyone. Hey, Whitney.
Yeah. Kenny and Vanessa are also founding members of our partner in this program, Black Theater United. Hello, you guys. How is everyone before we jump in?
All good.
Good. We're here to talk about the Refocus Project. It's incredibly ambitious and just very exciting in terms of thinking about the power it will have to kind of transform the American theater at large, the entire landscape. And in American theater and theater in general, we tend to categorize productions as new or a revival. And for our listeners, a revival usually implies that a work is a classic. And before we talk about where we hope to go and what the Refocus Project is designed to accomplish, I'd like to just start by asking what you all think has historically defined a classic in the theater, and how do works become classics, and how do they stay that way?
I'll go first. For me, as an actor, they are relevant material that doesn't matter what genre what age you're in, whether it's what decade, if it's something that still touches the heart. It's wonderful. I got a chance to do a piece 50 years after it had appeared on Broadway with the amazing and late Cicely Tyson. It appeared on Broadway back in 1953, and we got a chance to do it in 2013, and it still resonated. It still made people laugh and cry and sing with joy, and that is considered to me a classic, something Horton Foote, but something that is that can stand the test of time. To me, that's a classic.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, I would say add to that, Wendy, as beautiful as our country is and as the American theater is, that has been a sort of a narrow road in terms of what is a classic, in terms of representation by Black and brown people, representation from women. So, in the past, you think of Eugene O'Neill and Arthur Miller, Tennessee Williams, it sort of stays around that group, you know what I mean? And what's wonderful about what we're going to talk about, I hope, today is how to expand that group, how to open the eyes of everybody to recognize excellence in writing and what writing has sustained the test of time, which is the important factor here.
I mean, that's a perfect segue to my next kind of question. That's more for you, Todd, because it's like that's really the point of this project, the Refocus project, because as a society and especially the arts at large, we're really having a moment of racial reckoning. We have a lot we have to tackle in terms of the work that's being presented, the access that people have, and what is being presented to audiences, and kind of honestly telling the full scope of the American experience and not just one narrow experience. So Todd, can you just talk to us a little bit about what Refocus is and what really inspired you to make this a priority for Roundabout?
A little over at least 2 years ago, maybe 2.5 years ago, this is before the tragedy of George Floyd, we were trying to fit our stages and the personnel backstage a more diverse and inclusive group of people, not just what you see on the stage, but directors, designers, and writers. But and frankly, to do more diverse work with new artists is, if you put your mind to it, which we did, is relatively simple. There are incredibly talented BIPOC artists, young, unbelievably talented writers. And so if you look at the plays that we've done at our off-Broadway theater, the Pels and Underground, they've been, the majority of the work in the past few years has been by writers of color. But then I thought, well, wait a minute, we're a theater that does revivals of classics. And by the way, I thought Vanessa's definition was perfect in terms of how I think of producing a classic, as opposed to maybe scholars think of different. But so I thought to myself, well, I'm not sure that the plays that we consider classics necessarily are not particularly classics anymore. But I have to believe that there's a body of work by writers of color that never allowed the opportunity to be discovered, or discovered in any significant way by the critical establishment, the artistic establishment, the literary establishment, which was obviously primarily white dominated, if not almost exclusively, going back in time. And so I started to think about what we can do to look at works that I might not be familiar with, but that have enormous merit and would meet the criteria that Kenny and Vanessa articulated, being relevant to an audience today, great works of art, et cetera. The first play we came up with was a play called Trouble in Mind by Alice Childress. Probably, for some people, it would be relatively well known. For the masses, not at all. She was a writer in the 60s, wrote, I think, 2 great plays. And it was clear doing some research that the only reason they didn't end up on Broadway was because she was Black. And they were actually critically acclaimed, so it wasn't really that. And so we began working on that. And then with the advent of everything that's happened since the passing of George Floyd, we decided to really try to double this effort and concentrate it. And that was the birth of the Refocus Project, was to try to look in an organized way at finding works of art by writers of color that are worthy of being on any stage in America and just have never had the opportunity for the reasons we talked about. And so that was the birth of the Refocus Project. And I think a lot will come out of it. Not surprisingly, probably to anybody in this call, the works that we're finding are exactly what we hope to find, which is really extraordinary works. And the final part of this program, in terms of sort of the general thought, was that we're fortunate enough to be a big enough theater to have a fairly sizable artistic staff, full-time and part-time, of which Whitney is one. And so we can do this research. We can have a lot of people read the plays and give their input. And we wanted to make that not just proprietary to Roundabout, because the reality is, no matter how good the plays are, we're not going to take 5 readings and do all 5 plays in the next year. I mean, we just don't do enough plays. We don't do enough revivals, certainly. So we thought, well, what are we going to do to expand the horizon? And the thought was to have it streaming around the country to anybody in the industry, and that's defined broadly: artistic directors, dramaturgs, anybody who might want to see these plays, because I'm assuming, hopefully, that the same movement that's going on in New York to produce diverse works is going on in all the cities around the country and all the extraordinary regional theaters. So we're doing our best to promote it nationally. Obviously, it's completely complimentary and flexible. You have some time to watch it. And that's where we are now.
I mean, what you said something in there, Todd, that I think is really important. It would be great if everybody could talk about this more, but it's not about just canceling what we consider classics to be. It's about expansion. Can you guys talk a little bit more about that and why it's important to have these new classics, even though they're by writers that were writing in the same time period as a Williams or anyone else that we would put on the stage? But it's like, why is that important that we're expanding and not just canceling? Is there anything you have to say about that?
I think we're as beautiful as a country. We're as beautiful as our stories, and so it's like just like I can have the leap of imagination to appreciate Tallis Folly, about a Jewish family, and I can have the leap of imagination to get into Tennessee Williams and all the Southern traditions. And at the same time, I want folks to try to imagine what it was like when James Baldwin was writing his great plays, Eight Men Corner, or August Wilson was writing his first play, or Melvin Van Peebles was writing Ain't Supposed to Die a Natural Death. There's so many plays that we can be exposed to as a country that we're not. And it's somebody's fault, but as a country, we all collectively take responsibility for that. And I think that most families, at least the people that I've met at the Roundabout, most families are open to hearing other stories. And that's going to make us better. I want to look at some stories through the lens of women and what women go through every day, or what they may go through in their job or their home. I want to look to see what Todd, as a white man, I want to see a white writer, tell his story. I want to hear that, but I also want them to hear my stories. I want them to hear the great Zora Neale Hurston. I want them to hear the wonderful Leslie Lee. And there's so many forgotten stories. There's so many stories that we just don't know about. And we know that we're also in the business of entertaining folks. So we know that all great stories has a great beginning, a middle, and an end. A great story is not preachy. A great story allows you to laugh, to think, and to cry. And we just think that comes in all kinds of shades, all colors. So it's just adding on to our storytelling capability, and also giving equal access to writers who look different from each other, give them jobs and opportunity.
I mean, that's amazing, because I mean, Kenny, you have already interpreted the words of some of our greats, especially in the Black canon, Lorraine Hansberry, August Wilson, and you also work with the great new writers of our time, Lydia Diamond, Katori Hall. And so I think it's interesting that the Refocus Project is not only bringing you those big, big names that we're all used to, it's also refocusing on what to many groups of people might be considered lesser known writers. And so for someone like you who's interpreting the greats and you're in dialogue with all this incredible theatrical history, why do you think it's important to take the time yourself to focus on these lesser known writers, you know?
As Whitney, personally, selfishly, it makes me better. It
Yeah.
makes me a better person. It's like I'm the proud grandfather of two multiracial, beautiful kids. You know, they're like they're cream colored, beautiful, and I love them. And I remember, and I'm gonna be honest here, when the kids was born, you know, the father is white and the mother is black, and I was like, okay, I think somewhere in the back of my mind, I was like, I want them to, okay, I want them to have some chocolate in there now. And then when Gabriel, who was the 5-year-old now, when he was born, I was like, Gabriel don't have, he has very little chocolate. But I looked at him and I said, I love that kid.
Yeah.
I love him. I love him. And it has nothing to do with the shade of his skin. You know, I couldn't love him more. I couldn't love him more. And so that sort of heightened what my sense of love is, you know. And so I think as a country, if we were to look at that, it's like, that's the way love comes. You have to treat everybody like they're your grandkid. And if we treat our plays like that, our plays are like our grandchildren. We learn from our grandchildren. You know, we don't care where the truth is. Like when the other day, you know, Gabriel will say something like, Auntie has a mustache. It's like, what? You know, they just tell you the truth. So we don't care where we get our truth from. So let's just look at our plays as our grandkids. And so that's, I like, and quite frankly, I learned from the younger generations. You know, like when I did Hairspray Live, I had 10-year-olds in the musical. I had 20-year-olds, 30 years, 40-year-olds, 50 years. I had Harvey Firestein. I had 80-year-olds in that play. But every decade or every age had something to offer the whole.
Yeah.
There's something when you're 10 years old and you're looking at life, you offer the world that nobody else can offer. When you're 2 years old, a 2-year-old, it's like they're not thinking about anything except that little butterfly or the caterpillar, or they're so curious about life. And sometimes we forget that 2-year-old part of us. And then when you're 20, you look at the world different. 30, you're different. There's something that I sat down with the great Harry Belafonte the other day, 94 years old. You know, there is wisdom in the 94 years. And we as a society has to understand that we get beauty from all different ages and everybody has something to offer. So I'm always trying to work with young, old, white, black. It selfishly makes a better life for me.
I mean, you answered the next question, which is like, what is the impact of kind of unearthing these ancestral playwrights and how is it affecting people of the now? And you just kind of gave this beautiful answer on the power of intergenerational art making. I mean, I wish I could put that on a slogan.
Hey, Whitney, can I just jump in on one of the train of thoughts? One of my favorite quotes that I just heard is that diversity is a fact, but inclusion is a choice. And I am a board member on the Roundabout for some years. And with everything that's gone on, I have seen Todd and our board and the whole machine really listen and turn it into action. And obviously Refocus is one of the cogs of the wave that we're feeling. Yeah. But this is a time where there's a shift. And I'm really proud to be part of not only Black Theater United that came together because of the tumult of last year, but also Roundabout, who is listening and they're ready to make the shift. And that's why we're here today. And that is the leadership of Todd. And again, I've told you before, but I thank you for listening and taking action, because that's why we're here, and that's why we're giving so many opportunities to people that might not have had it, a year ago or so.
Will you tell us a little more, Vanessa, about Black Theater United? Because this is kind of in partnership and it's an incredible thing that's come of this time. Will you just tell us a little bit more about the organization? And you founded it with others last summer, and it's already, I mean, even for me, it's making huge, the video that came out, it's making a huge impact already. Just tell us a little bit more about why you chose to work on Refocus with Roundabout.
Well, Kenny and I are both founding members, and we came together kind of like a call of duty. Audra called after George Floyd and like, we got to do something. Mm-hmm. So we met over Zoom. We did a quick kind of PSA of who we are and join us. And then we've been doing all the work, really, Kenny. We're on committees, we're sending out emails, we're doing agendas. We have one admin between all of us. We're literally doing all the work. And it's advocacy, it's mentorship, it's getting grants and to build our strategic planning. And I thank you for mentioning the video, because that was my project, which came to me through.
It was dope. It was so powerful.
Thank you. So Phil Galson, who wrote "Save the Best for Last," which is one of my biggest hits. This past year, I'm a professor at NYU. At Steinhardt, and Phil is the composer, but also invited me to be part of the NYU faculty this year. Wow. And after everything happened, Phil said, listen, I wrote this song with Dave Schroeder, another professor at NYU, and I think BTU could really do a great job. I played it for everybody. Everybody loved it. Then we all did our separate recordings. And then the behemoth was shooting the video, because I just didn't want to do everybody on their phone, which we've seen, and it's been done great, but I wanted to get everybody in the room at the same time. And we did a great performance video. And we've got, of course, Kenny's working and Audra was working. So we kind of, got Kenny in California, Audra in Times Square. Wendell was about to go to Budapest, Wendell Pierce. So we had to get him in New Orleans before he left. But it all came together wonderfully. And we wanted to make sure that we also showed the people that came before us. So we've got beautiful clips of Harry Belafonte, of Sidney Poitier, of Sammy Davis Jr. talking about their struggles as Black men in the entertainment business, and Martin Luther King, and it just works seamlessly. So we showed the transition from who opened the door, and we have to keep it going.
I mean, you just connected to, and I'm going to give us our first audience question. Also, audience, please send your questions. We will try and get through as many as we can. But this thing about opening the door. So we have an audience question, and they write, who decides the Refocus Project's mission is to redefine classics, and it's a worthy endeavor. But real long-term change comes when the power structure is altered. How will Roundabout change who decides for future productions? It's a good question.
I think, a couple of answers to that question. Fundamentally, somebody has to make a final decision on something. And that's ultimately my job. But my job involves a lot of input, always has, from other people. And we are, and I am, totally committed to this project. So, although the final decision has to be made by me, because somebody has to say yes or no, we have added artistic staff members of color, and all those are involved in reading the plays and helping to make the decision. Our dramaturg is Black. So, I'm not quite prepared yet, although the day is coming to fall on my sword and just say, well, I'm white, so I shouldn't really be here anymore. But I am totally prepared to open my mind and heart to commitment to diversity. I'm a big believer in the fact that if you're committed to something, really committed to something, you make it happen. And I'm in a position to make it happen, so that's my job. And I take it seriously.
Wonderful.
If I were to add to that, I think one of the things that I've witnessed in the last year. It's not that I don't see systemic racism in our country on Broadway. Evidence at the unintentionally at the roundabout. So one of the reasons I wanted to join the roundabout was to make a difference, and it started with Todd's heart. You know what I mean? It's like person to person. I was like, he's he's serious. He wants to do this. So he brings me on. He talks to Vanessa. He brings Whitney on. He's and it's the core values have changed. It's like diversity, inclusion is a core value at the roundabout now. So Todd may go, I may go, but Vanessa may go, but you got to have other people coming in behind us who embrace the core values. So hopefully you'll see that on our stages, you'll see that in our audience, you'll see that in our mentorship rooms. One of the things that when I came on, one of the things that I wanted to be involved in was to redefine what a classic is. Some people, if you say, an African American classic, they say, what is that? A Raisin in the Sun? And they can't name any further. So my job,
how many times you can revise that?
help Todd broaden, what we mean by classic. And he said, okay, that's going to be one of your main things to help us identify these classics. And another thing is to help draw a line from people of color who get lost in the shuffle, who are great directors, but they don't know how to navigate through regional theater to off-Broadway theater to commercial theater. And at the roundabout, we have an off-Broadway house, we have a facility to do workshops, and we have commercial theater. So we can continue to do our part to draw the line to make a little difference. But again, it's going to take everything in the world that we do at the roundabout. It's going to take everything that all the landowners at Broadway theaters can do, all the regional theaters, all the community theaters. It's really going to take all of us. And I'm just really proud to be a part of the roundabout because I think we're trying to make a difference forever.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the challenges we face, Whitney, and by we, I don't mean just roundabout. I mean, certainly everybody in the New York community, I don't want to speak for the country, but I'm sure it's similar, is changing the composition and expanding the audience. And it's not just, I mean, the first step in that, of course, is to put works on the stage that's going to appeal to a diverse audience. I mean, I sort of think that goes without saying, but I think it's somewhat, I think there's certainly in the early days, there's considerable outreach involved in getting that audience in the door and having them feel welcome and having them be able to afford it and having them feel comfortable and seeing great works that are not just exclusively about, let's say, the Black experience, but about a whole, as Kenny more eloquently than me puts it, about the whole panoply of experiences of people's lives. And that's a major challenge. And I'll tell you something, in addition to all the social and moral, societal reasons we should do that, and we'll do that, from a purely cutthroat financial standpoint, if we're going to have theater 50 years from now, 20 years from now in this city, certainly in a city that is already a majority non-white, if we're going to have a younger and diverse audience, we just have to do it. We just have to. And it's a major challenge.
Yeah.
Todd, I have one more for you. I mean, it's amazing that Black Theater United is partnering with Roundabout on this, but maybe you could talk to us a little bit more about the other partners that have signed on to support Refocus. And some of them include the Ford Foundation and Bank of America and New York Public Library. I'm a big library person. Go to the library, everyone, when everything opens up. And of course, Black Theater United. And just talk to us a little bit about what it means to have this support and what about these organizations is going to help the Refocus project and enhance it.
You know, one of the things that's important to me in this project is I'd rather not do everything alone and have it just be about us. I'd rather have it be about a community of which we're a part, obviously. And so in the case of Black Theater United, it probably goes without saying, you see two of the leaders on this call. Some of the other artists are people that are part of the Roundabout family, and many of them are people I greatly admire. And they're playing a leadership role in pushing for diversity and inclusion in theater in America. And the opportunity to have them as partners is just enriches us. I mean, it's as simple as that. New York Public Library, which is, we've never had an association with them in any formal way. It's wonderful. Their role is I mean, obviously they're very turned on by the project in the first place, and they do an incredible job of promoting it to their constituency, who's exactly the constituency, at least one of the constituencies we're interested in reaching. So they'll be doing a lot of promotional work to their members, obviously a very literate group of people. Bank of America has always played, I shouldn't say always, but in the last decades has played a leadership role in not only philanthropy and supporting a roundabout, but now, as Jeff mentioned to you earlier, in diversity. And they leapt on to help support this, just been incredible. And the bank has been incredible. You know, it's a sad thing. When I got into theater in 1983, every corporation in New York City, every single one, had a philanthropy department. Now almost nobody has a philanthropy department. And so we treasure the big companies that are still supporting the things that should be supported by everybody, actually. And last but not least, the Ford Foundation. We've had a modest association with them over the years. I think Darren Walker is truly one of the most extraordinary men who ever walked the face of this earth. And what he's doing at the Ford Foundation is staggering. In fact, there's an incredible 60 Minutes piece on Darren yesterday, which everybody should watch if you didn't see it. Anyway, for whatever wonderful reason, he's been a supporter of ours, even though funding sort of mainstream artistic institutions is not particularly where their major focus is. And he just came, from the first time I talked to him about this project, he basically said, yeah, and made not just a generous commitment, but the best thing that a funder can ever do is not just give you the money, which is wonderful, but make a long-term commitment. Because you don't want to have a program that you get going and you can afford to do it, and then after 1 year, you like the program and you can't afford to do it anymore. And that's invaluable. And he made a 3-year commitment to this program, which helps pay the cost of each year. And frankly, at the risk of sounding corny, it's an honor to have the Ford Foundation's name associated with the program, because what they're doing in outreach to different communities around the country and education around the world, not just the country, it's just staggering.
Vanessa, I have one for you, because I mean, Refocus is just incredible. It's focusing on all this incredible Black work. And I know that you've had a lot of experiences on many different types of sets with many different collaborators. And can you just tell us a little bit why, or just for you specifically, why uplifting the work of Black creators is so important? And what does it mean to you as an actor to work on a piece by a Black playwright?
Well, it's an honor, again, to make people feel in the theater, in their seats. And as I said before, even though Horton Foote is a white playwright, or was a white playwright, the fact that it was a white production and then 50 years later it's a Black family and it was still salient, still hit the mark, that just shows the power of the words and the lilt and the melody that came out. When I was speaking Horton Foote's words, it felt like a song, of the way that he created the dialogue and the conversations. So I did for encores, I did St. Louis Woman, which was, Lena Horne was originally supposed to do it back in the 40s, 50s. She didn't get a chance to, but it had not been done by anyone since the 50s. And we did it in 1998. And George Faison was our choreographer, and Stanley Way Mathis was in it as well. And Luther Henderson was a Black, he's since passed, but Luther got a chance to redo all of his arrangements because there was no score that was left with a record. And we got a chance to re-record the score of all this lost work. So it was taking a relic, blowing off the dusk and bringing it to life again. And those are opportunities that are really few and far between. Unfortunately, at the time, Jack O'Brien was our director. We wanted to bring it to Broadway. Everybody was ready to go. And what we heard was it was too big of a show and it wouldn't make money because it was a Black production.
Wow.
Hopefully we won't hear that anymore. We're not going to make any money because of Black production, because, you know, the data shows that there are Black people with money, and Black people do show up to the theater when they're excited about something that they want to see.
Yeah.
And I think you're going to see a shift that way, just in terms of the economics of theater and programming for, you know, the tremendous. I'm a mother of 4. My kids are all adults. They spend money on trips and stuff. So when they want to see something, they will show up and pay top dollar. Yeah. So we don't have to worry about that being an issue anymore. So that, I know that's kind of, you know, veered off the course, but it's all kind of important in terms of the historic Black theater, but also the dollars that it can create.
Yeah, it's so important, just looking at the reality of the buying power that we have as a community, and that we have a right to see our stories on stage. I think it's one of the most important things I've heard. Well, just going back to the project a little bit, Kenny, you are going to be directing a piece in it. You're doing the Sam Art Williams Home. You're doing that play. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, you know, I start rehearsal tomorrow on that play, and Sam Art Williams was a master poet. And when I think about Sam Art Williams and introducing this to the Roundabout family, I'm like, it's almost a form of thievery when we don't introduce Sam Art Williams and James Baldwin and Lorraine Hansberry. You know, can you imagine a world where this generation don't get to witness their brilliance on the page? So I feel like, okay, it's a form of thievery for us not to present this work. So I'm excited because I know, just like when we did a Soldiers play last year, I know that many people didn't know about that play, but when they came to see it, they were like, oh my God, it works. And there's a door for me to enter, not just for Black folks to enter, but white folks, young folks, people that love their country. And that's what I'm always trying to find. What's universal about a piece of art? What makes it relatable to all human beings? So Sam Art Williams, this piece, oh man, I was just reading it all day today. And we're gonna love it because it sings, it is beautiful. It is a love story about a man who loved the earth, who loved the ground, who loved planting things. And then his life took a turn and he was exposed to a world of concrete, in the concrete jungle. And he found his way back to the earth, which he loved, which was tied to the woman that he loved. And so it's a beautiful, I'm just a dreamer and I love love stories. So it's like to get these two people who fell in love when they were 16 and they find each other when they're like 55, 60 years old, and they still find the love and it's still worth their life. That's something universal. So I'm hoping that we can shed that kind of light through our storytelling, because if we listen to other stories, it makes us closer to each other. And one other thing I like to say is, I think we're going to try to make a commitment at the theater to get people who look different from each other to be next to each other. And that's not just up in the offices, that's behind stage, that's getting like crew people, that's getting directors, that's getting audience members sitting next to somebody that you don't know. You know, that's, as corny as it sounds, as Todd would say, that's a beautiful goal. That's a beautiful thing to want. So I can't wait for us to see Home. I'm excited.
Yes, I'm excited.
And you know, you are an amazing director, Whitney, as well. And you know, your production of James Baldwin's Amen Corner last year, I just hope that finds its way to New York. And I hope you're the one to introduce it to audiences, because Whitney White and James Baldwin, that's a nice sandwich.
Thank you, Kenny. Love that. We're scheming about it. Todd and I are scheming.
Good.
So much. Okay, a couple more quick things. I mean, what's also so amazing about this, about the Refocus project, is it is being presented free of charge, and it's going to be streamed virtually. We talked about it a little bit, but maybe all of us, I mean, that's kind of a huge thing. COVID has been very hard, and everybody has lost so much, but some is being gained, and this virtual world is changing accessibility possibilities. Could we just talk about how these resources and readings are going to continue to be inclusive even when the theaters come back, and what it means for it to be free and available in this way.
Well, for us, this is just the beginning of this program, and we intend to continue it as long as we can continue it, hopefully years to come. There's so much good work out there. So, and you're right, when you do it in a theater, and we do a lot of readings in theaters, you have 60 seats and it's very intimate and it's very stunning, but, people get a lot of people to come to a 60-seat theater one night. You're only going to get a certain number of people. You might fill up the theater, but there's 1,000 others that can't come that night and can't fit in the theater. So to have the opportunity to do it virtually, and hopefully in the future, I'm kind of fantasizing that we can do it both in person and stream it at the same time. Get the best of both worlds. And there's nothing like seeing a play read in the actual theater space. I think it'll be the perfect combination. And next year our refocus will focus on Latinx playwrights. Hopefully, we're in conversations with a partner from the Latin community in New York City, much like BTU is our partner this year. And after that, we'll see. I mean, we haven't even addressed Indigenous playwrights. We haven't just disabled. There's so many different communities, and we're not finished with the Black community. So it'll just keep going.
You'll never be done with the Black community. You'll never
be done with the Black community.
I know, it's like never, ever, ever.
No, we go back to 1619. You'll never be done with us.
The three of us were like, wait a minute. We're coming. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's been wonderful to do virtual things. I got a chance to do The Best Man. Michael Wilson directed it. John Malkovich, Zachary Quinto, Katie Finneran, and who played God? Morgan Freeman, who actually we took like 3 days we broke it down and did a few scenes of all of us together. Then there was a major hurricane in New Orleans, and John Malkovich lost power. Morgan Freeman had to drive to Mississippi to get some Wi-Fi. It was crazy, but it all edited beautifully together. And that was wonderful. I did another one called Right Before I Go. So it's great for an actor to be able to do that, because you can kind of choose, who you're doing, and it's a wonderful opportunity. And then it lives. I think they both lived for a good 30 days for people to download and Zoom, or Zoom and stream it. So that's been wonderful to work that way when you don't have the live theater.
Yeah. I also think one of another gift that Todd's program offers is that, a lot of artistic directors across the country, they have so much administrative work to do and so much fundraising to do that sometimes they don't have time to read as much as they want. And so I think that we can do some of that legwork. So by presenting quality level plays by older playwrights, or playwrights who are no longer with us, so they get a chance to view it, to do that production and make a decision about their community if they want to bring that particular play to their community. So I think that's another thing, instead of us always looking at, what's just for our specific theater or our specific community. There's some things that we can share collectively across the country. So I'm hoping this helps other artistic directors in small towns in Alabama and Georgia.
That was beautiful. I mean, we're coming up on the close of our time. I just want to, if there's any last remarks you have, Todd, what you said is so important. I think it's really important for our listeners to know that this is not a one-time thing. This is going to be a long-lasting initiative that the Roundabout's going to be doing to change the landscape of the American theater. But if there's anything else anyone wants to share, please do.
Well, I want to just say how wonderful I think Vanessa Williams is as an and as a producer on the thing that she's been doing. But she's just, I think she's an American treasure, and I just want to say that out loud. And
thank you.
More and more, I'm finding the courage to just say to people out loud what I feel about them, while we're still looking at each other. So I've been wanting to say that. So Vanessa, I appreciate you as an American artist. And I appreciate you as a colleague with Black Theater United.
I appreciate you and love you, Kenny. And for those who saw Soldiers Play, it was stunning. And I saw the first night of previews, and I walked right up to you and said, "That was amazing." And we said we got to work together, and then we ended up working together in a not theatrically, but on a bigger
you still owe me. You still owe me.
Okay.
On the roundabout stage, you owe me. We have to work together.
I promise.
He meant that. I felt it.
But thanks, Todd. Thanks, Todd, for doing the work again. Really, just stepping up and you know, manifesting what you talked about and what you heard.
Thank you. We're gonna make it happen. We are.
All right. Well, thank you. It's wonderful to be in dialogue with you all, Todd, Vanessa, Kenny. Take care. And to all of our listeners, come check out the Refocus Project. It's really going to be incredible. All right.
Get your vaccination.
And get back. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks.
Bye.